The hook. The city was silent, but the silence was not peace. It was the silence after destruction. Buildings stood broken, their walls black with smoke. Roads were filled with rubble, cars overturned, and glass shattered everywhere. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of fire and metal. In the middle of this ruined place, a woman stood alone. Her armor was cracked, her helmet scratched, and blood ran down her face. Yet her eyes still burned with fire. She held a weapon that was nearly empty, the power cells blinking red, but she did not step back. Around her, alien machines moved slowly, their tall bodies made of silver steel, their glowing red eyes fixed on her. Each step they took shook the ground. Their voices were not words, but sharp metallic sounds, a noise that chilled the heart. They were not alive like humans, but they were deadly, merciless, and cold. She raised her weapon. Even though she knew it was not enough, she had fought for hours, maybe days. She had lost count of time. Her body was weak, her breath short. Her mind told her to give up, but her heart whispered one thing: keep fighting. She remembered the first day the sky broke open, bright lights falling from the stars. Not gifts, but weapons. The aliens had come without warning. They destroyed the great cities in a single night. Governments fell, armies crumbled, and people ran with no place to hide. Humanity was crushed. But she did not run. She had seen her family taken, her friends killed, her world burning. That pain became her fire. That fire became her strength. While others cried in despair, she picked up her weapon and swore one promise: as long as I stand, humanity stands. Now she was here, in this broken city, standing against an army she could never defeat alone. The machines circled her, their shadows long in the firelight. She looked small, fragile, almost broken, but inside, she was stronger than any of them. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. It was the weight of exhaustion, the kind of exhaustion that seeps into the bones. Yet her spirit was louder than the weakness in her body. She pulled the trigger, and her weapon roared again. A blast of light cut through the dark, striking one machine. The alien fell, its red eyes fading into black. The other machines moved faster now. Their voices grew louder, echoing through the empty streets. She dodged, rolled, and fired again. Every move was sharp, every choice desperate. Her body screamed in pain, but she kept going. She whispered to herself, "Not yet, not today." For a moment, the battle slowed. Smoke rose around her. Broken steel covered the road. She stood in the middle, her chest rising and falling. The machines paused, as if calculating, deciding how to crush her next. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. It was not just her fight. It was the fight of all humanity. Somewhere out there, survivors were hiding, waiting, watching. They thought humanity had already lost. They thought they were alone. But if she stood, if she kept fighting, maybe they would believe again. Her vision blurred. She could barely see. Her body wanted to fall, but then she remembered the faces of those she had lost, the laughter of her child, the voice of her mother, the promise she made to her brother before he died. Those memories lit a fire in her soul. She screamed and charged, her weapon blazing one last time. The sound filled the streets, a mix of fury and hope. The machines fell back for a second, confused by her strength. In that moment, she was not just a soldier. She was humanity itself, fighting to the last breath. The city watched in silence, broken but not dead. The fire around her made her look like a figure of legend, alone but unbroken, small but unstoppable. She was not fighting for victory anymore. She was fighting to show the universe that humanity would never bow. And somewhere, deep in the ruins, a faint signal cracked through the static of her broken radio. A human voice whispered, "You are not alone." Her eyes widened, her breath caught. For the first time in a long time, she felt something different, not just pain, not just rage, but hope. She tightened her grip on the weapon, her legs steady once more. The machines roared, the ground shook, but her heart whispered stronger now, louder than fear, louder than pain. The battle was not over. Humanity was not finished, and neither was she. Her past revealed. Before the war, she was not a soldier. She was a woman who loved books more than battles. Her name was whispered later as a legend, but once she was just Dr. Alara Kane, a scientist who studied stars and dreamed of peace. She believed the universe was filled with wonders waiting to be discovered, not enemies waiting to invade. Alara worked in a quiet laboratory. Her hands were always covered in chalk from drawing constellations on the board. She would tell her students that space was a mirror, and when you looked at it, you were also looking at yourself. She spoke about hope, about humanity's place among the stars. Her voice was soft, but it carried passion. Then the sky tore open. One night, lights rained down. People thought it was a meteor shower. They cheered. They made wishes, but Alara looked up and felt only dread. The lights were too fast, too perfect, not natural. Her heart told her the truth before the news arrived. The visitors were not here for peace. In the weeks that followed, the world fell apart. Cities burned, armies collapsed, and governments disappeared into dust. Humanity tried to fight, but the aliens were too powerful. Their machines crushed everything. Their weapons melted steel like butter. Alara was not ready for war. She had never held a gun before. Her hands were meant for pens, not blades. Yet when her city fell, she was forced to change. She ran through streets filled with screams, carrying only a small bag and the memories of her family. Her husband had died in the first wave. Her daughter was gone, taken by the machines. That night, she found herself in the ruins of her university. The place where she once taught about peace was now a battlefield. She picked up a weapon from a fallen soldier. The weight felt wrong in her hands, but she held it anyway. Something broke inside her that day, but something else was born too. She was no longer just a scientist. She became a survivor. For months, she wandered from place to place, moving through ruins, hiding from patrols, meeting other survivors. Sometimes she helped heal the wounded. Sometimes she guided the lost. People began to notice her, not because she was the strongest fighter, but because she never gave up. Her eyes carried both pain and fire, a reminder that even broken people could still fight. One winter night, she joined a group of resistance fighters. They were young, hungry, and afraid. They looked at her and asked why she fought. She told them the truth in simple words. Because if we stop, humanity ends. They followed her after that. Every person she met left a mark on her. A soldier who gave her his last bullet. A child who handed her a flower in the ruins. An old woman who whispered, "You are our light." These memories shaped her. They reminded her that she carried not just her own pain, but the hope of many. Still, her heart carried heavy scars at night. When the world was quiet, she would dream of her daughter's laughter. She would wake up with tears, gripping her weapon tighter. The pain never faded, but she turned it into strength. Her promise was clear. She would not let humanity vanish. The aliens never understood this spirit. They thought crushing cities would crush human will. They thought killing families would kill human hope. But Alara proved them wrong. With every step, she showed that humanity could bend but not break. There were times she wanted to fall, times when hunger, cold, and grief pushed her close to the edge. But every time, something pulled her back, a memory, a voice, a whisper from her past. She would see her daughter's face in her mind, smiling, alive, and she would whisper back, "I will fight for you." Her journey turned her from a quiet dreamer into a living symbol. The world had lost its armies, its leaders, its heroes, but it had Alara, a single woman who refused to surrender. When others looked at her, they saw more than a fighter. They saw a reminder that humanity's heart still beat. They saw that no matter how dark the night became, there would always be one light. And so, when she stood in a ruined city, bleeding and tired, she was not just Alara Kane anymore. She was the spirit of humanity. She was the proof that even the smallest flame could push back the endless dark. Her past had shaped her. Her pain had forged her, and the universe would soon learn. She was not fighting for herself alone. She was fighting for all of humanity. The impossible fight. The night was darker than ink. The only light came from burning towers and the glowing red eyes of alien machines. Alara stood at the center of the street, her shadow stretching across broken walls. Her weapon hummed weakly, the power core blinking with its last breath. Still, she raised it high. The machines moved closer. They walked on long steel limbs that struck the ground with thunder. Each step cracked the broken road. Each sound echoed through the ruins like the drumbeat of doom. They were hunters, patient and cruel, and Alara was their prey. She fired. A bolt of light burst out, striking one in the chest. Sparks exploded, and the machine staggered, but two more advanced from the smoke, their red eyes burning brighter. Her weapon groaned, its energy fading fast. She whispered under her breath, "Not yet, not yet," and pulled the trigger again. The blast hit another machine. It fell, crashing into the ground. For a moment, silence returned. Then the rest began to run, their movements sharp, their voices like screeches of metal tearing apart. Alara spun, dodging their claws, rolling through the rubble. Her body screamed in pain, but her mind refused to stop. She dived into a ruined building, the ceiling half gone. The walls cracked. She moved fast, planting small explosives she had built from scraps. The machines followed, their claws tearing through walls like paper. As they entered, she pressed the switch. A deafening explosion shook the street. Fire and dust filled the air. Metal parts rained down. Alara fell to her knees, coughing. The blast had taken some of them, but more shadows appeared in the smoke. There was no end. For everyone she destroyed, two more appeared. It was an impossible fight, yet she kept moving. She climbed higher into the ruins, her boots crunching glass. She leapt across broken beams, using height as her weapon. From above, she aimed carefully, firing at weak points she had learned from endless battles. Knees, joints, glowing cores. Every shot counted. Every second she gained was stolen from death. But her body was failing. Her arm shook with each pull of the trigger. Her vision blurred from blood dripping in her eyes. Her breath came in sharp gasps. The machines knew it too. They slowed, circling, waiting for her to collapse, like predators watching a dying deer. For a heartbeat, Alara felt despair. Her chest tightened. Her legs nearly gave way. The thought whispered in her head. Maybe this was the end. Maybe her fire had burned too long, too bright. She was only one human against a world of monsters. Then she remembered. She remembered the soldier who gave her his last bullet, the child who handed her a flower in the ruins, her daughter's laughter, her brother's voice, all the faces that looked to her with hope, all the voices that begged her to keep going. Her fear turned into fury. She screamed, a sound that cut through the night. Her voice carried across the empty city. More powerful than the roar of the machines, she jumped down, straight into the circle of steel giants. Her weapon blazed. Her blade flashed. Sparks flew as metal clashed against her strength. She fought like fire itself. Every strike a storm. Every shot a promise. The machines fell back, their perfect patterns breaking under her chaos. She was not fighting for victory anymore. She was fighting to show them, to show the universe, that humanity would not kneel. Hours passed like minutes. Minutes passed like seconds. Her body moved beyond pain. She fought on instinct. She turned rubble into traps, broken pipes into weapons. Even when her weapon finally failed, she grabbed a steel rod from the ground and swung it with burning rage. The machines struck her down again and again. Her armor cracked. Her body bled. But she always rose, always. Every time they thought she would fall, she stood again, a single human, small and fragile, standing against the storm of steel. The aliens had numbers. They had power. They had endless machines. But Alara had something they did not. She had a heart that refused to break. She had a spirit that would rather burn out than bow. The fight stretched deep into the night, until even the machines seemed to hesitate. Their red eyes flickered, as if confused, as if asking themselves why this one human still stood. Alara lifted her weapon one last time. Though it sparked weakly, her voice was hoarse, but she whispered into the empty air, "As long as I breathe, humanity breathes." Then she charged again. Humanity's whisper. The city was quiet again, quiet, but not safe. The battle had ended for now, though the night still smelled of smoke and fire. Alara leaned against a broken wall, her body heavy, her breath slow, her armor cracked open in places, blood marked her skin. She had survived, but just barely. Her weapon was dead, its power core empty. The screen flickered before going dark. She tossed it aside. It clattered against the rubble. For a moment, she closed her eyes. The silence pressed against her ears, the kind of silence that makes you wonder if you were the last sound left in the world. But then it came, a crackle, soft and faint, breaking through the static of her damaged radio. She froze. Her eyes snapped open. The device on her chest gave a weak hiss, a line of static, and then, "Hello? Anyone alive?" Alara's heart stopped. The voice was broken, distant, filled with interference. But it was a human voice, not the sharp metallic screech of the machines. Her shaking hands grabbed the radio. She pressed it close. "This is Alara Kane," she whispered, her voice rough from battle. "Who is this?" Repeat. Static swallowed the air again. For a long moment, nothing came, then another whisper. "Kane, you're still alive?" Her chest tightened. For months she had believed she was fighting alone. For months she thought humanity had gone silent. But here, in the ruins, through broken wires and broken skies, came proof humanity was still breathing. She pressed harder, her voice urgent. "Where are you? Give me your coordinates. How many of you are left?" The signal cracked, faded, returned. "We survivors, hiding, fighting still." The words came scattered, but each one hit like fire in her veins. Her body trembled, not from fear this time, but from something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. She lifted her head and looked out across the ruins for the first time. The city didn't feel empty. Somewhere beyond the smoke, people were alive. Her mind went back to the nights. She whispered to herself, telling herself she was not alone. She used to believe it was just a lie to keep her legs moving, but now the lie had turned into truth. She climbed to the top of a broken tower, her legs weak but steady. She scanned the dark horizon, searching for signs, lights, movement, anything. The machines roamed in the distance, but between their patrols, she thought she saw something else, a faint flicker like a signal light, blinking once then gone. Her radio cracked again. "We heard about you, the fighter in the ruins, the one who never falls. You gave us hope." Alara's eyes widened. Her legend had traveled. Even without her knowing, her fight had reached the ears of survivors. Somewhere in the world, people spoke her name. A lone woman who stood against the impossible. She felt the weight of that truth. It was heavier than any weapon, but it gave her strength. They were not asking her to win the war. They were asking her to keep standing, to remind them that they were not finished. The machines screamed in the distance. Their red eyes scanned the streets below. Alara crouched low, holding the radio tight. "Stay alive," she whispered back into it. "Hold the line. I will find you." The static answered. No clear words this time, but the whisper of humanity was enough. It was proof. It was fire. It was life. She moved through the ruins again, but her steps felt different now, no longer heavy with despair. Each movement had purpose. Each corner she turned was not just survival, but a path toward others. As she walked, her mind returned to her daughter's voice, her brother's promise, the flower handed to her by the child in the ruins. She realized something. She was not only carrying her memories, she was carrying the memories of all those who were gone. Every human heart that had stopped still echoed through her. And now, with this signal, she knew she was carrying the living too. The night grew colder, but she felt a strange warmth. Hope was not a weapon you could hold, not something that glowed red or blue like alien machines, but hope could move mountains. Hope could raise armies from the ashes. Hope could make one woman stand against the impossible. Alara lifted her head to the stars. They looked the same as before the war, quiet, distant, eternal, but now she whispered to them, "We are still here. We are not finished." The machines howled. Their metal claws dragged against stone, searching for a scent, but she did not flinch. She pressed the radio to her chest and whispered, "I am not alone anymore." And with those words, the impossible fight no longer felt impossible. It felt like the beginning of something greater. The whisper of humanity had become her strength, and the world was about to hear her roar. The turning point. The ruins stretched wide before her, shadows of steel towers and broken glass. For months Alara had walked these streets believing she was the last echo of humanity. Now, with a single voice on the radio, the world felt different. Somewhere beyond the smoke, others were waiting. She followed the faint signals, her radio crackling with broken words. Sometimes silence swallowed them. Sometimes static roared, but the voices always returned, guiding her step by step. She traveled through cities swallowed by fire. Forests turned to ash, rivers glowing faintly with the poison of alien machines. Yet with each mile, the voices grew stronger. One night, she saw it, a light in the distance, not red like the machines, not fire, but human, a flicker, a torch burning in the dark. She felt her chest tighten, her legs move faster. When she reached it, she saw them. People, real people. They were thin, tired, and scarred, but alive. Their eyes widened when they saw her. Some whispered her name like it was a prayer. Alara came, they said, the fighter, the one who stood against them alone. She stood there, silent for a moment. The weight of their gaze pressed against her. She had been alone for so long, she had almost forgotten what it felt like to be among her own. Then she spoke, her voice steady. I am no hero, she said. I am just human, like all of you, and we are not finished. A murmur spread through the camp. Some cried, some smiled weakly. In that ruined corner of the world, hope flickered again. Over the next days, Alara walked among them. She listened to their stories, a soldier who had lost his entire unit, but still carried his rifle, a mother who shielded 3 orphans though none were her own, an old man who wrote messages on scraps of paper, promising that one day humanity would rise again. They were not strong, not many, but they were proof humanity had not been erased, humanity had only been scattered. Alara trained with them. She showed them the weak points of the alien machines, how to set traps with scraps, how to fight not with strength, but with strategy. She shared every scar, every trick she had learned in her endless battles. And as she fought beside them, she felt something she had not felt in years. She belonged. Then came the day they showed her the secret. Deep inside the ruins, beneath the ground, they led her to a hidden base. The walls shook with the hum of old generators. Screens flickered with maps and signals. For the first time, Alara saw the bigger picture. Across the world, other camps were still alive, small, scattered, broken, but alive. They had been waiting, hiding, fighting in shadows, and all this time, they had been whispering about her, the lone fighter who never fell, the flame in the ruins. She stared at the maps, at the blinking dots that marked human survivors. Her hands trembled. We are not alone, she whispered. The words felt heavier than steel. The survivors around her nodded, their eyes shining. You gave us time, one said. You gave us courage, another added. Alara closed her eyes. For so long she had carried the weight of humanity alone. Now she felt it shift. It was no longer a burden only on her shoulders. It was shared, carried by all of them. They began to plan, not just survival, but resistance. They spoke of hitting the machines where it hurt, of cutting their supply lines, of striking not as broken pieces, but as one people. It was dangerous, maybe impossible, but for the first time the word victory was spoken without fear. As the nights passed, Alara found herself standing not at the front of a lonely war, but the heart of something larger. Humanity was rising, slow but steady. She was their symbol, but she knew she could not win alone, nor did she need to anymore. One evening, as the camp gathered around a small fire, a child tugged at her sleeve. The little girl looked up with wide eyes and whispered, "You fight for us, don't you?" Alara knelt down, her voice soft. "I fight with you," she said, "because alone I am nothing, but together we are everything." The fire cracked, the people leaned closer, and in that quiet night, something stronger than weapons filled the air, unity. The machines still roamed the cities, their red eyes glowing, their claws tearing, but beyond the noise of steel, another sound was rising, the sound of human voices, steady, unbroken. The turning point had come. Humanity was no longer scattered whispers in the dark. Humanity was a storm waiting to rise. And at the center of it stood Alara Kane, not alone, not broken, but surrounded by her people. The final battle. The night before the battle, the camp was silent. Fires burned low, shadows stretched across broken walls. Men and women sat together, sharpening old blades, loading cracked rifles, whispering quiet prayers. Every face carried fear, but behind that fear was something stronger, determination. Alara walked among them. Her armor had been patched with scraps of metal, her weapon rebuilt from broken parts. She looked at each survivor, at the tired eyes that refused to close, at the trembling hands that refused to drop their weapons. Humanity had been broken, but here they were, ready to rise. Maps lay across a table, marked with red ink. The alien fortress stood at the center, a massive tower of steel and fire. It pulsed with light, sending commands to the machines across the land. If the tower fell, the machines would falter. If the tower stood, humanity's last chance would die. The plan was simple, not because it was easy, but because it had to be: strike the tower with everything they had, tear open its core, and end the invasion at its heart. No one expected to survive, but everyone knew why they had to try. As the hour came, the survivors gathered. Some stood with rifles, some carried explosives, some held nothing but sharpened pipes. Alara stepped forward, her voice carried through the ruins. We are not fighting for one city or one camp. We are fighting for every voice that was silenced, for every child stolen, for every life they tried to erase. Tonight, we remind the universe who we are. We are humanity, and we do not bow. A roar rose from the crowd, not loud like the machines, but fierce, a roar made of grief, of love, of defiance. It carried into the night, shaking the silence. Then they marched, through broken streets, through rivers of ash, through fields where bones still lay. They moved as one, shadows of men and women against the firelit horizon. The machines stirred, sensing the storm. Their red eyes lit the darkness. Hundreds rose, claws clicking, weapons glowing. The battle began before they reached the tower. The first wave of machines crashed against them, blades against steel, fire against fire. Explosions lit the night. The ground trembled, screams filled the air, but the humans did not break. Alara fought at the front. Her blade struck sparks with every swing. Her weapon roared with borrowed energy each time she fell. Hands lifted her up each time she bled. Voices shouted her name. She was not alone anymore. She was the heart of an army. The machines pressed hard, their numbers endless, but humanity pressed harder, not because they were stronger, but because they refused to fall. Every survivor fought not just for themselves, but for the one beside them. They became shields, they became fire, they became hope given form. At last, the tower rose before them, a mountain of steel, glowing with alien light. The fortress loomed, its walls alive with machines. The air burned with the hum of energy. Alara lifted her hand. The signal was given, explosives were thrown, bombs built from scraps ignited. The ground shook, fire erupted at the base of the tower. The machines screamed, rushing to defend their core. The final battle became chaos. Humans swarmed the walls, climbing, blasting, cutting. Alara charged through, her body bruised and broken, but her spirit unshaken. She reached the gates, tearing through the machines that blocked her path. Inside, the tower pulsed with light, a great engine of alien power. Sparks danced across its walls. It was beautiful and terrifying. Alara stood at its heart, holding the last explosive. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. The machines rushed toward her, hundreds, thousands, but the survivors held the line outside. They screamed her name, giving her every second she needed. Blood painted the ground. Smoke filled the air, but no one stepped back. Alara looked at the core, glowing like a sun. She whispered, "This is for all of us," and slammed the explosive into its heart. The tower screamed, a sound not of metal, but of something ancient breaking. Lights swallowed the sky. The ground tore open. The machines outside collapsed, their red eyes flickering into darkness. The blast threw her across the chamber. Pain surged through her body. Her vision blurred. For a moment, silence returned, heavy, endless. Then she heard it, the sound of human voices, cheering, crying, shouting her name. The fortress burned, the machines fell, and for the first time in years, the night sky was free of red light. Alara lay on the ground, her body weak, her armor shattered, but she smiled, for she knew the battle had been won. Humanity had risen, humanity had fought, humanity had not bowed. And because of that, humanity had a future, victory, and legacy. The sky was quiet for the first time in years. There were no burning streaks of alien fire, no thunder of steel feet, no red glow watching from the shadows, only the stars, cold and distant, shining down on a world scarred but alive. The tower lay in ruins, its steel frame twisted, its heart broken. Smoke rose into the night, carrying with it the last breath of the alien machines. Across the battlefield, silence fell. Then slowly, voices rose, human voices, tired and cracked, but filled with something powerful, triumph. Alara lay on the ground, her armor shattered, her body trembling with pain. Around her, survivors gathered, their hands reached for her, pulling her up. She stood unsteady, but her head held high. Her eyes scanned the battlefield. She saw broken weapons, fallen friends, but she also saw life, people hugging, people crying, people laughing through their tears. She had fought for so long believing she was alone. Now she stood in the center of humanity, and they stood with her. A child stepped forward, the same girl who had once asked her, "You fight for us, don't you?" Now the child smiled, her face lit by firelight. "You kept your promise," she whispered. Alara knelt, her voice soft but steady. "No, we kept it together." The survivors cheered. The sound spread across the ruins, echoing through the broken city. It was not just victory over machines. It was victory over despair, over silence, over the belief that humanity was finished. Days passed. The machines no longer walked the streets. Their bodies lay still, rusting in the sun. Survivors came out of hiding, from caves, from forests, from shattered basements. They found each other again. Camps grew into towns. Towns into new beginnings. The earth was scarred, but seeds of life were planted once more. Alara watched it all. She walked among the people, not as a distant hero, but as one of them. She helped lift stones, mend walls, teach children to write again. She laughed with them, cried with them, lived with them. But everywhere she went, people whispered her name, not as a warrior of death, but as a guardian of hope. They painted her image on walls, carved it into wood, told her story to the children at night. She became a legend, not because she was unbroken, but because she was broken and still fought. She became proof that even the smallest spark could light a fire big enough to save a world. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the ruins, Alara stood at the edge of the city. Looking at the horizon, a soldier came to her side, his voice quiet. "The war is not finished. There may be more of them, out there in the stars." Alara nodded, her eyes fixed on the sky. "Then let them come," she said. "They will find a world that will never kneel. They will find humanity, standing together." The soldier smiled, and for the first time in a long time, there was no fear in his eyes, only pride. Alara closed her eyes. She remembered the faces of her family, the laughter of her daughter, the promises she had carried through fire and blood. For years, those memories were her burden. Now they felt like wings, lifting her. She whispered into the night, not for the machines, not for the stars, but for herself and for every human heart. "I am not alone anymore." The wind carried her words across the ruins, across the people, across the new world being born. And so her story became more than a story. It became a promise, a warning, a light, a promise that humanity will fight, a warning to those who would try to break it, a light for those still searching in the dark. Generations would come and go. They would rebuild cities, plant forests, write songs, and look at the stars. And when they did, they would tell the tale of Alara Kane, the woman who fought until the end but never stood alone. Her legacy was not in the battles she won, but in the fire she left behind, a fire that would burn in every human heart forever. The machines had fallen, but humanity stood, humanity endured, humanity rose. And because of her, humanity would never be alone again.